Okay. So, before I get started, I'd like to talk about my main camp's information, if possible. When I'm advocating for my main camp's information pertaining to this video, in which they wanted spirits to know, specifically disclaimers pertaining to this video, I'm talking to the spirit realm in that instance. To hopefully throw up information that my main camp indicated in the spirit realm, in the spirit realms, in this instance, in most instances, that word spirit realms, to me, my definition encapsulates the light and the other dimensions, as well as most, if not all that is in existence. So it's there to sort of protect myself, because there is certain things in the physical that physicals do at times, in which can cause discord and things like that behind the scenes. Specifically pertaining to my process, though. Not to say that there isn't that sort of thing in other people as well, and I think there is, and I think people should be careful in regards to what they say out loud with their physical voice, specifically if you knew that your physical voice itself could affect thousands of beings. If you knew that there was hundreds or thousands, or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of beings who could hear your voice, who could see you, who could see the things that you could do, depending on who you are, depending on your sort of process and your turbulence and your sort of awareness, the population's awareness of you. I suppose we could say fame, but I hate saying fame because I think we're all famous to a certain extent. With that being said, for what's acceptable, of course. When I say certain things, like when I go to the observing outside, when I'm going to the observing outside, I'm usually talking about spirits who are part of my process, who are in the proximity, who are in the vicinity, who are potentially observing, in the hopes that they can throw up certain information from my main, that my main camp wanted them to throw up. My main camp is mostly located in faraway light. Faraway light being this afterlife, potentially crystal cities. I think potentially another word that's been called, that faraway light has been called. I think to a certain degree, humans on this physical planet, potentially go to afterlives when they pass on. Near-death experience research points towards that, and from my understanding, through my point of view, in my belief system, that there may be many afterlives. There might be many afterlives afterwards, and one of those afterlives, I believe, is faraway light, and it's hard to describe, but it may be one of the one of the afterlives that humans, on this physical planet, go to after they pass on. It might be one of the more prevalent ones. In fact, it might be done in sort of a societal way, for what's acceptable. And if there is, I thank those who continue to support, that sort of action in regards to physicals going to where they should end up after death. With that being said, I wanted to talk about my story. My story. What is my story? So my story, I guess I'm one of the few physicals who knows my story. And the spirit realm around me, some of them know it, and I think some of them don't, and there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone has a story, whether you be spirit or spirit in the physical body. I'm sort of stalling here too, because I don't really know where to begin with it and how to continue going with it. Well, I guess I'll start with my name. My name is Alex. My name is Alex Hislop, Hislop. I was born in 1991, November 22nd. My parents, who are amazing people, have been taking care of me my entire life, and have been providing for me and making sure that I'm okay. And at 26 years old, some people would consider that upsetting, but for me, I don't. I don't for a reason, because they've protected me and I've protected them, and I appreciate them providing for me in regards to monetary and a place and setting, and having a place to live while I sort through my craziness. My craziness being my life. Regardless of your life, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think there's, I think in societally, in the physical, I think it can be a detriment, or considered a detriment, to still be, in the nest, that sort of thing. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and if possible, to for the spirit realm to protect, for the spirit realms to protect my mother, my father, and my sister, who's also physically handicapped. She was, I think, born in 1994, and I believe to a certain extent that she might be psychic, to a certain extent. She's unable to communicate, my sister, and she's, but her responses at times lead me to believe that she's able to hear and see certain things. And she's also blind. She's also physically blind, but the way she responds at times leads me to believe that she is psychic, to a certain extent. And I'm advocating for people to protect her in regards to that sort of thing as well, if possible. Now, I had a normal upbringing, a fairly normal upbringing, I feel. We weren't too religious. My parents are very lenient in regards to that sort of thing, sort of more, understanding regarding, New Age spirituality and that sort of stuff to a point. And I think I went to school, and I finally, to a certain point, when high school started, I felt like I couldn't deal with the pressures involved in it and the energies. And the pressures that people feel within school, within high schools, within public schools. It's everywhere. It's talked about. We have that awareness in the physical, let alone in the spiritual. That those energies exist, that there is such a thing as, peer pressure and pressure. I decided not to continue my high school experience. I went there for the first year, and then I stopped going. And I said it was related to something it wasn't, potentially. I was actually just more afraid of having to deal with life, with having to deal with women. Yeah, that was a part of it. Being afraid of females. That was a part of it, too. Being worried about a lot of different things, a lot of different experiences I wasn't ready to experience, or that I didn't want to experience. Sex being one of them. And after a while, I decided to try homeschooling. I tried to try something different other than the normal high school experience. And I did, and I worked towards it, and I finally got my GED. 5 years after. It took me a couple more years, and a lot of the time I wasn't doing anything. A lot of the time I was playing. No, I'm not to say that I wasn't doing anything, but I was on vacation. I've been on vacation. I still am on vacation, technically speaking, I feel like. I feel like this life was sort of vacation. I came here, and then I just decided not to do much of anything for a while. And then I decided to do too much. At least a lot of the spirit realm feels that way. Trust me. A lot of physicals, if they were to see my life, they might think that not much has happened, or take a look at their own lives and think that not much has happened. But a lot has happened. If I was to tell you that there was thousands of years passing through each moment, meaning that potentially people in different afterlives and dimensions are experiencing time in a different way than we are, that they potentially could be experiencing a short amount of time in the large amount of time that we've experienced, and vice versa. And if that is the case, you don't even really have to do much of anything for a lot to happen, because if there is certain societies involved and certain corresponding factors, there's going to be things that are happening anyway. But you start to add into it when you talk to the spirit realm, and it becomes very, very interesting, and almost it changes the whole ball game when you start talking to the spirit realm around you. And you could just talk to the spirit realm around you yourself. You don't have to be psychic to be able to speak to them. That's what's interesting about it. What if I was to tell you that the physical itself, as a dimension, if many dimensions, or if some dimensions exist, that the physical is sort of a heavy, sort of a dimension where a lot of people can be impacted by the physical. And when we look around, the physicals who are listening to this, or physicals who do listen to this, I'm like, well, at times it doesn't feel that way. At times it feels like there isn't much going on. It feels like I'm sitting in my own room doing nothing, or that, I'm walking, to school, or that I'm going to work, or I'm driving to work, that sort of thing, right? Well, what if there was thousands, millions of things happening around you that you couldn't see, that you couldn't understand, but that actually does correspond with the physical world. It's what I started to learn. And partially on why I started to learn that sort of thing is because I asked, around 2004, I was around 12 or 13, and I can't remember how old I was. And I remember asking, the spirits around me, for me to be psychic. I remember having a desire to be psychic, to be able to speak. I started asking to be able to speak to the spirit realm around me. And of course, now looking back on it, I could have spoke to them at any time I wanted to. That's what I just said, moments before I said it. That you can speak to the spirit realm around you regardless of whether you're psychic or not. But, that was one of those things where I wanted to be able to hear from my guides and not to just, and I didn't know at the time that I could, I was speaking to them in a sort of way. I was sort of like, what's out there? What's going on? I was doing it in very, sort of the way of someone who doesn't know anything about it. And to be totally honest, that's not so crazy in on this physical earth with, not to say that there isn't spiritual things out there, not to say that there isn't spiritual information, because there is a lot of spiritual information out there on the internet. But just to say that it hasn't, I feel it to a certain extent hasn't hit mainstream in the way in which I think a lot of people want it to. Because if it did hit the mainstream as the way a lot of people want to, I think there'd be a lot of different things going on. Mainly, that of dimensional research not being so under the radar at times. And it does feel that way for someone who is, entering that sort of field, who's been entering that field for the past 3 years, who's been, taking a look at it here and there, not extensively, not even really, only a little bit. That's the truth. Small articles here and there in regards to, looking up the psychic community on the internet and stuff like that. But I'm getting there. And, there's certain spiritual entourages who are helping me with this sort of, who are helping me with recording my voice, who are helping me in regards to recording my story, who are helping me in regards to recording myself in general. And I want to thank those spirits and people. I keep, and I appreciate your assistance and your help. There's a lot of things that people can do out there that people aren't aware of fully. If you knew that you could say out loud and you could ask the spirit realms around you to protect, your families, and if you knew that asking was being heard by thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions, there's been people there that, this is it. Specifically, this is it. Specifically, the celebs out there, and you don't have to be, you may not look like you're a celebrity in the physical, but you may be a celebrity. That's the truth of it. I feel like everyone's famous, and with that being said, there still is low tide, high tide in regards to population within, spirits around you. The spiritual energies around you, however many spirits are around you at any given time, and that sort of thing. If people knew that they could say many things in regards to defending themselves, and that not only would it happen, but it may happen, but it may attract other things too. Not that it just doesn't happen, but it also improves it helps a lot. You don't know how much it is appreciated, I think, at times when even just a physical, talking about our dimension we're in, and the existence we experience, how much the spirit realm and realms appreciate our sort of help in regards to that sort of vocal response. Just saying out loud that I want my family to be protected by the spirit realms if possible, and to state that you're asking them to protect your family and families and your families and friends and all that sort of thing matters, because it lets spirits know that you want them to be protected. And it lets spirits know that you've asked them to protect. That in and of itself protects people. With that being said, I still need to continue to talk about my story. I always get sidetracked. I always try to interject. I try and say certain things here and there, and I have a difficult time, talking about my story at times. So I get sidetracked. I apologize. But my main camp. My main camp is my main spirit guides. So when I refer to my main camp, I'm usually referring to my main spirit guides, and they're usually located in faraway light. In faraway light. And I call it faraway light because there might be other lights in the afterlife. There might be even beings in the physical light that we don't know about. Things like that. With that being said, there might be afterlives that look similar and sound similar, almost to the degree that we feel like they're the same afterlife, but they might not be. So that's why I sort of put an extra measure in play as to make sure that faraway light. That's where my main camp is located. That's how I feel about it. If I've said that it might be called Crystal City, or it's been called potentially Crystal City before, but it might not be. It might be a different afterlife as well. With that being said, we all have main camps, I feel, to a certain degree. I think we all have spirits watching over us. And I think you all have main camps, all located potentially wherever you set it up. So you could set things up before you jump into a life. It may be set up that way. One of the other, and they could be, watching over you. There could be things like that. There's things like that, and I think not only, and I think I've been told that there's things like that through spiritual communication, through talking with people, through talking with spirits, and why that information is so vital and important. Why people shouldn't be harmed or attacked behind the scenes in the spirit realms for providing me information in regards to that sort of thing. See, that's another thing. Protecting spirits in regards to the giving of psychic information. Saying out loud, specifically in regards to those psychics out there who do hear this, if you ask for protection in regards to those who give you information, that helps a lot. That helps a lot in many different, unforeseen ways that you can't see currently. Hell, maybe we'll never be able to see it, but it does help to a certain degree. And yeah. So yeah, around 2003, 2004, I asked, to a certain degree, in a certain way, to be psychic. And little did I know that later on, specifically, later on and throughout the years, that I would start to develop psychic gifts. I'm psychic. I'm able to speak to spirits. I'm able to talk with spirits beyond, in different dimensions, and in the light. Well, and potentially in the light. Potentially in the light. I don't know how the communication works fully, but I do feel that my communication works in regards to myself, that I am conversing with other dimensions and the light at times. Not to say that the communication I receive is fully from the light or other dimensions. Just to say that the communication itself may not necessarily be coming from the light, and may not necessarily be coming from certain dimensions that it's said to be coming from. Around 2006 and 2007, so like a couple years after I asked to be psychic, I visited my Aunt Louise, who was a dear family member who passed away in 2011, who I feel at times is a part of my main camp, if not always a part of my main camp. But she wasn't passed on in 2006. She was alive. She was in British Columbia, and she lived there with my Uncle Rob and my cousin Robbie, and if possible for spirits to protect them. And if possible for spirits to protect anyone who's involved with the making of this video and / short audio clip, but whatever, my main camp's definition regarding it, because there's other things that are not necessarily relating to video and audio, and I'd like those spirits to be protected and safe. I visited my Aunt Louise, and I got a tarot card reading by my uncle, Robert Billiter, and he gave me this tarot card reading, and it freaked me out. And I even got a little bit embarrassed, and I remember him saying to me that it's nothing to be embarrassed about. Is that when he gave me the tarot card reading, and I don't remember the full specifics of it because I wasn't paying full attention to it, and I should have been. I should have taken a picture of it. That's what I feel like now. But it was like a full 10-card spread. It was a big spread. It wasn't like 3 or 6 cards. It was 10 cards, 10 tarot. And I don't know if it was just 10 tarot cards. It might have been. It was tarot cards. It was tarot cards. It might have been a special kind, but a lot of the cards that were pulled, I think like maybe 5 or 6 out of the 10, were love cards. They were all love cards. But the way it looked when you finally put them all on the table was like, there's way too many love cards here. That's the way I felt here. I'm like, what's going on here? What's with all the love? What's with all the heart cards? That sort of thing. Yeah, well, one of the cards was death. The ultimate thing to overcome, in my instance, was death. It was the card of death. And I wondered why that was. I didn't understand it fully. But maybe that's a false reading, that part of it. Unless it isn't. But a lot of the cards were love, and I didn't understand what that was. I didn't understand what it was about. And I know that I felt embarrassed about it, and I don't know why that was either. But I did. And I know that maybe it was just spirits around me trying to razz me at the time, because I have a belief system, and in that belief system I feel that a lot of the emotions we experience in the physical, not necessarily in the physical, but in physical bodies, the emotions that we experience. Because the spirit realm likes to get tricky here. I mean, if I say that we're not necessarily experiencing it from our physical body, that we're experiencing it potentially from our soul or other dimensional bodies, our emotional body or whatever you want to call it, then you can see how that they'd be a little bit tripped up when I said that I'm feeling it in regards to the physical and not necessarily my emotional body. But you see. But either way, I know how I'm talking about it, and I clarified. There is certain things that happened afterwards that have seemed to correlate that tarot card reading about love. And I look back on it, and after it happened, I didn't really understand it. I didn't really pay much attention to it. But in 2007, about a year later, late 2007, maybe midway, I don't know, tail end 2007. Early 2008, I started looking for things on the net, for things on the internet. I don't know. It started off with just looking for things, just looking at things. I'd go to conspiracy theorist websites and things like that, and I would look around and see what's going on. I wanted to find out more about the truth that was out there, whether that be in in sort of in whichever capacity it was. I was looking at multiple things, sort of conspiracy theorists, spirituality, that sort of thing. And as I was looking, I read a post, and there was a post by a person who went by the name of, I believe, Avadar, Avadar. And I don't know if that was what his forum name was, but that's who I started to know him as by. So he worded this post about certain things that were happening to people, about certain things that were happening behind the scenes in the spiritual, about certain things about love and light. And after reading it, I had to message him. I just knew it in my soul that I had to message him, that I needed to message him to tell him what has been going on. Because that's a part of it. Part of the searching was that I was looking for reasons as to why I was able to experience certain psychic phenomena. Now remember, in 2000, and this phenomenon didn't start until, late 2006, early 2007, maybe midway through 2007, just before I started looking for stuff on the net about it. I started looking for it. I started looking about, what could explain the certain psychic phenomenon that I was experiencing. And I was experiencing this aura reading. It's not, and it might not be classic aura reading, because I think there's different kinds. In fact, I'm fairly certain there is different kinds of different aura readings. But one of the ways that I'm able to see it is, imagine if you were to close your eyes, right? And you close your eyes and you see darkness, right? You see a bit of the colors that go on, that you see, as you close your eyes. But with me, I'm able to see dots of light that appear. Now, it's been discussed to a certain extent online, to a certain, I've read it here and there. Some people think it's a psychic phenomenon, which I agree with. Some people think it's auras of the spirits around us, and I agree with that to a certain extent too. I don't know in what capacity and how it works, meaning that I don't know if it's just proximity, I don't know if it's just vicinity, I don't know if it's a specific proximity or vicinity, or vicinity. But I know that it works, because when I close my eyes, I'm able to see certain colors. Certain colors ranging from, red, yellow. No, I haven't seen yellow in a while. And I think that's how it works at times. You see certain colors at different times and at different, times within your life. Green, color blue. I see color blue a lot. The color blue I see a lot. I see purple. I see pink. I see magenta. I see white on occasion. White spirits. Now I was looking for answers as to what these colors were. What did it mean? What did it mean? What did it mean to be able to see those colors? Because I knew that and it just started. It happened slowly. I noticed it one day, and I know there was before looking for things on the internet and searching for things, but as it started to present itself, and as I started to realize it, I started to look. I started to look on the web and see what this was all about. What the heck was I experiencing? Why was I seeing these colors? And one of the posts that I saw from Avidar, Avadar, Avidar, who he goes by Avidar, and he posted on this, this website, and I saw it, and I had to message him because it rang too much. There was a sort of a chord that was plucked. I felt it to be true. I felt it to be truthful information, and I felt like I needed to speak to him. And that was my own internal feeling on it. I don't think it was any other, spirits doing it. I felt like I needed to speak with him. I felt like I needed to message him because I wanted to talk with him about what I was experiencing and if he could help me. And he did. He did help me. He helped me in one of the most amazing ways possible by teaching me how to love. How to love. Now, what is, people are, okay, well, what does that mean? What do you mean he taught you how to love? He taught me how to love. He told me that emotions that we experience may not be, to a certain extent, the emotions we experience can be used to our advantage down here. We can invoke the energy and the emotion of love. It's potentially, and I feel it is, a willful action, meaning that if you aren't moving your leg and someone else is moving, your leg for you, you're not necessarily moving your leg, but someone, there's a metaphor here in regards to it. The emotions that you feel. Now, I don't know how he feels about this, how Avidar feels about this, but I feel like to a certain extent the emotions that we feel at times, and I think he's told me this to a certain extent through email exchanges and stuff like that, to a certain extent is not necessarily our own emotions, depending on if you willfully projected that emotion or not. And most people within their lives, I feel to a certain extent, aren't necessarily projecting or invoking those emotions that they're experiencing to a certain extent. Meaning that spirits around us are potentially making us feel, or we're able to feel certain emotions from the spiritual elements around us. And we do so in a way that makes us think that it's our own emotion, because the way it's set up behind the scenes, in whatever dimension it's a part of, whatever dimensions it's a part of, whatever, if it's a part of the, might be part of the light too, however it's set up, almost on a species sort of level, at least in the physical to a certain degree, is that, those emotions that we feel to a certain extent may not necessarily, be our own, and it feels like it's our own. But it might not necessarily be that. And as I started to learn this, I started to become aware of this. And most people are still wondering, okay, what do you mean? Those emotions that we feel are our own, right? They feel that way. They say that, and it can feel that way. And it might be. But it might also be spirits around us implanting emotion. The emotion of love, the emotions themselves. When you drop a mug, a coffee mug, and you feel irritation, and the next time you feel irritation or upsetness, take a look at it. Look at what it is. And see if it's an actual external feeling that's being placed upon you, that's being sent towards you. So if feel if you're not actually moving. That the metaphor itself that I was trying to talk about earlier was that if you're not actually moving, then are you the one moving yourself? Meaning that if someone is moving your legs and moving your arms, are you actually moving your legs and arms? Even if it feels like you're moving your legs and arms. And that's where I equate it to the emotions that we feel and experience at times. Are you fully invoking those emotions? Are you exuding those emotions just as you would moving your legs to walk? Because if you're not moving your legs to walk, if you're not invoking emotions, then those emotions you're experiencing are the spirit realm around you, potentially. Anyhow, as I conversed with Avadar, I sent him an email. The first message I sent him was off that post that I read. The post that I read that made me become aware that there was a lot more things around us than we could have ever imagined. And one of the things he explained to me was about love. Was learning how to love. He told me about a discarnate community. So in this instance, the word discarnate means sort of in spirit realm, in the spirit realms, which I've already explained some of that to a certain extent. To me, that word, the word spirit realms encapsulates the light and other dimensions, as well as potentially most, if not all, the things within all that is. So this spiritual community that he was involved with, that he partially founded in the physical, is called the Society of Light. And I know it sounds it's perfect because it's perfect for a reason. Because some of the stuff he talks about is the light, and I know there's a lot of there's a lot of groups out there that are associated with light, and there's a lot of probably a lot of groups that are similarly named to the Society of Light. And either way, I appreciate you helping. I appreciate people helping. The Society of Light's this group of beings, and I feel like they are not just located in the light, but I feel like they're potentially light-based, and that they existed and promote love, within the spirit realms. And that they were, guiding and helping Avadar, and still do to this day. And one of the things I learned with the Society of Light is how to love. Now, I'm going to make, other recordings in regards to this sort of thing, in regards to, how to invoke love and how to do it. But, the methods involved, that he told me about was heart chakra radiance, and it was learning how to radiate love from within. And I appreciate it to this day because I still use it. I still love every day. I learned how to love around 2008 or 2007, and I've continued to do it. There's been times where I haven't done it, but I've been continuing to love, to a fairly, every day. It's been to a certain degree. And the more you love every day is supposed to make you or help you in regards to your spiritual life as well. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that it helps, not just in regards to your own life, but in regards to other people's lives too. Remember how I was saying that you set it up a certain way before you jump in sometimes? Well, that's the truth. You learn how to love, you start loving. Your main spirit guides who attach it towards something. So if you start loving, it's going somewhere. Where's it going? What if they attached it towards all your, family and friends back home? Back within the light, or back in the other dimensions. And every time you love, you're sending that love and emotion towards them. What if it did other things too? What if it built things behind the scenes? What if it saved people's lives? What if there's a reason why, not only within spiritual research, but just everyday life, the mentality and mindset and emotion of love is advocated for, even if it's in its own commercial way, it's still at level with the Gen Pop, and it's right there in front of our faces. The Valentine's Day exists, and it's about love. It is. That's what it's supposed to be about. I mean, it's about love, but it's about other things too. We're not gonna cross words here. It's about other things too. But with that being said, that's how much of an impact love can have. It literally seeps into everyday, things, even in communities that aren't necessarily, believing even in societies that don't believe in psychic information to a certain degree. I mean, psychic information, even in the physical, on this planet, is difficult to grasp at times. I mean, there's psychics who are still, who are still going through, being labeled as mental illness. There's still that sort of thing. And it is a shame. And any psychic out there that knows what I'm talking about, knows what I'm talking about. People being labeled as crazy when they are actually psychically inclined, when they are actually receiving communiques from the spirit realm. And the spirit realm is, to a certain extent, the spirit realms to a certain extent is brimstone at times, I feel. I mean, can be immoral, can promote immorality. That there are people being tormented in, on this physical planet, in the physical, not just in the physical, but in other dimensionals, in regards to, being attacked psychically and being labeled as mental illness and that sort of thing. I think that's an awareness that needs to be talked about, and I definitely want to do, more on that as well. With that being said, I learned a lot with Avidar. My teacher, I consider him my teacher. I consider him a mentor. He helped me and provided techniques in which showed me how to love. The emotions warm and fuzzy in your chest area. And think of the emotions that you experience, that you feel. And if possible, to check out the information regarding heart chakra radiance, and if I can try and because it's very important. Wherever I link this video, I'll try and link it to the HCR page, because it is very much important to be able to learn how to love and to experience it, because it's life changing. The elements around at times, I feel want me to love. That is the truth. And at the same time, I think there are elements who don't want me to love, for many different reasons. Not just to screw with me, but there might be other unforeseen reasons too behind the scenes. But I think love is important. I think it's important for a reason. As I continued to, I stayed with TESOL for 3 years, so from between 2007 to 2011, something like that. And we talked about a wide range of different issues, all different issues, afterlife, the light, potentially becoming gods through the act of love. If love increases karma, and karma is this sort of law or sort of setting that's this sort of law that's built into the setting of light. So let's say the light does exist after life. After you pass on, you go to the light. Let's say that's what happens. Let's say that's what happens, or that's what ends up happening. And you go there, and karma is you learn that karma is dictates how high you can ascend within the light. Unity, power, sight, clarity, health, a lot of different things, all relating. And I don't mean to be upsetting towards those who have lower light, those who only have lower light access, because those people need help. Those people located in the lower planes, they need help. They need protection. They need defense. And I'm advocating for defense and protection in regards to those in the lower planes or lower vibrational frequencies and the lower tones and that sort of thing. Specifically, those life-based systems, similar to that of the light, that may exist in other dimensions, that are based off of karmic sort of stuff. Even those in which it's sort of is backwards to what it's supposed, to what it usually is. And what it usually is, I feel, is that you do good action and you gain karmic access. You gain karmic gain. So imagine imagine the light. I've equated the light to this sort of metaphor, and every time I say it, the spirits around me always say it's hogwash. It's nowhere near a good metaphor, but I'll say it anyway. Is that the access to the light? You can look at it like sort of access to the internet. So. And I know it's specifically for those who are located in the lower axis of light, it might not be a good metaphor, or it might be, depending on what it is. So if I was to say that, the lower light access, the first couple planes is sort of like the Google page, and the next couple planes above that, you get access to Facebook, and the next couple planes like that, you get access to YouTube or something like that. Like there might be actual programs like that built in to the light and the plane levels itself. I mean, that's what's cool about it as well. We also inhabit it, so the inhabitants might also do affect the light itself, because it's also a place. It's not just, it's the food you, I said this before in writing, is, the food you eat, the water you drink, the sleep that you have. Because you think of the physical, and you think of the life parameters regarding physicals, at least in physical bodies, and one of those is food, water, setting. If you're out in the cold elements, it's going to kill you. So you need setting. You need a home. You need a place, a roof over your head. And a setting can mean a lot of different things. And sometimes it can mean the actual setting of it, or even areas. Sometimes it means in dimensions and stuff like that. And I learned a lot with Tiso. They told me that, a lot of the information that Avadar gave to me during those times was important, was vitally important, still is. And love being the key one among them. Around 2011, I started becoming complacent. I started losing sight and focus on why I was loving. I started receiving, energies, and I started receiving energies, and I started getting the feeling like not paying attention towards what I was learning from the society, from not only the Society of Light but also Avadar. And for a while there, I stopped loving. From between 2011 and 2015, I stopped loving and started just paying attention to my everyday life, which really wasn't, to a certain extent. I worked a warehouse job. Yeah, and I worked there for a bit. Shout out to New Lag. People could protect them. That'd be awesome. But after a while, I started, and do note at this point, with Tiso, with the Society of Light, I said that I am psychic, but in regards to me and the time frame, so all the way up until 2015, I wasn't fully psychic. I had little things here and there, like being able to see colors when I closed my eyes, being able to see auras, potentially, spirit realm colors and stuff like that. But I wasn't able to fully communicate with them, not fully. I wasn't able to fully communicate with the spirit realms around me. I wasn't able to fully communicate with the dimensions around me and that sort of thing. But around 2015, and it had been 4 years since 2011, since I had left Tiso, since I stopped responding via email. I sort of just dropped off the radar and stopped responding. And, part of that had to do with, I think to a certain extent being influenced by, certain spirits around me who didn't want me to love every day. Because it was impacting, it was helping, I think, to a certain degree. And I think there was other unforeseen reasons that are unexplainable to me, that fully, people aren't able to fully explain it and are able to let me know about, in which why that stuff does take place. And one of those things that happened was, I responded negatively to somebody during a Skype conversation with a family member, and I had done something wrong. In the spirit realm, the response from the spirit realm was, I had instantly sort of felt like I was getting attacked psychically to a certain degree, but it might have been also me. That's the truth of it. And I was not myself. I wasn't feeling well at all, and I felt I literally got visibly sick during the conversation. I got physically sick, and I threw up all over the floor, and I apologized to the person I was talking to on the video, but afterwards I kind of thought about my experiences with Tiso. And I started thinking, like, I need to go back to that. I need to go back to loving every day. I felt like I needed to go back to loving every day. I felt like I wanted to contact Avadar again. I felt like I wanted to continue, my spiritual experiences and not to just ignore them, not to just ignore my psychic experiences. So a lot of people might be wondering or asking themselves, what exactly did I learn with Tiso? What exactly, the Society of Light? Well, I learned about the light. Learned about the light afterwards, the afterlife. I learned about love being a real emotion. Now, the emotions that you feel are real, right? They're real emotions that you feel. Now, does anyone out there know what the emotion of love feels like? Is there anyone, a person that you were ever, like, really, really close to, even family members or even just, people you date or people you marry, that sort of thing? I mean, if you feel you should. If you find someone like that, yeah. But if you haven't, there's nothing wrong with that too. And there's probably a lot behind the scenes who feel that way towards you. And that's actually a truth. Remember, I said that your voice reaches thousands of people. but the physical might be a dimension where a lot of people are being viewed. And you're just your life. People start associating, people hang around your life long enough, and that's how people feel to a certain extent. People feel that way. I'm telling you that the emotion, the emotion of love can be achieved, and other emotions too. Forgiveness, gratitude. You can actually really invoke those emotions, and you can utilize them. I learned about how it could be increasing our karmic progression, giving us greater access to the light. And then we even talked about, potentially, because of the time differences and the karmic differences in the physical, that we could achieve godhood within the physical. And I don't know if you believe in that. I do believe in God to a certain extent. I believe in multiple things. I believe in multiple kinds of gods too. With that being said, it was always something that we're going to have to find out afterwards. I never did find out fully if we are achieving godhood while loving, if it was enough. I kind of felt like, I kind of feel to a certain extent that it hasn't been achieved. Depending on the dimension and / or, afterlife, or, depending on, where you are. If there's many different afterlives, meaning that it's not just the light in the afterlife, meaning that you might have to pass through other dimensions to get to the light, because you look at near-death experience research, and there's a lot of different things here. Some talk about a tunnel, some don't. Some talk about different areas. Some of the afterlives themselves look very different compared to each other. Now, I know that a lot of people might think that might just be the light, and it could be. And, in fact, even if it isn't, it might be anyhow. Sorry. But, either way, I started getting the feeling that potentially, well, regardless of whether we are gods afterwards or not, I still think to a certain degree the act of loving is important. So I emailed Avidar after that experience on Skype with a family member, and me being visibly, I felt like I got almost attacked psychically, and part of it might have had to do with how I was feeling or what I was thinking in those moments. I'm sorry either way for whatever it was. But anyhow, I felt like I needed to contact Avidar either way, and I think that was going to happen either way. So I contacted him again in 2015. I spoke to him. I talked to him. I told him, that I was sorry that I lost contact, and that I think contact and communications needed. And, as 2015 progressed, I started receiving I started to be able to hear the spirit realm around me. So not just being able to see colors, but being able to speak with them. It started at first within my own mind. All right, so imagine, there was a day in 2015 where I was crying in the shower. And I was crying because it had to do with a friend, and I was supposed to meet with them, and I was worried and upset and hesitant about it because of a lot of different things behind the scenes and at level 2 that happened in my life in regards to that relationship that I was having difficulty even ascertaining meeting. You ever have a friend that whatever it is, childhood friend or friend that you just are really worried about meeting again because you don't know what to say, you don't know how to talk. It was partially that, and it got to such a point where my emotions were almost out of control. Like I could feel the turbulence in my own emotions and the own energies around me. It felt like almost a tornado around me, to a certain extent. Tornado of emotions and energies, and I started being able to talk to people within my mind. It literally, during that moment, I started being able to hear them. I started being able to converse them. In those moments, it was leading up. There was moments before where I noticed small things within my own mind that I was having difficulty talking about. Like, am I crazy, or am I just hearing, like, this is it, I'm hearing voices, I'm going crazy, right? And, I'm not crazy, but and of course that's what a crazy person says, but I'm not. And it's taken a while for me to accept that I'm psychic, and I do accept that I'm psychic. And those experiences, and there's a lot of spiritual transformative experiences that have happened to me since then too. Multiple handfuls of different kinds of experiences that have happened that have changed me in multiple different ways. My personality, how I react, how I talk, my belief system, everything that's been impacted. And one of those times was that where I was crying, and that was where I was able to finally talk to people and speak with the spirit realm around me. And we had conversations. Yeah, it was. So imagine saying something in your head, in your mind, and being able to hear a response, someone literally talking back to you, saying like, okay, so if you were to say like, hello, what's going on, in your mind, and then it wasn't like it doesn't work like that for me. It's not like I have to speak to be able to hear the response in my mind. I just hear them. That's the thing. That's the difference of it. There's different kind of psychic gifts and stuff like that. And one of them is I think that's thought channeling. I think that's thought channeling, where you'd have to talk to be able to, to be able to get a communication from them. They channel through your own, thought mechanism, and you get a response back. But this one's not classic. I guess it could be thought channeling too, but it's a clear voice and not necessarily coming from your own voice. So it's a separate voice in my own mind. It feels like at times. At times it feels that way. Whether it is or isn't, remains to be seen. But as 2015 rolled around, a lot of, I kind of got wrapped into this sort of, story that certain spirits were telling me. The story itself has many turns and many twists and turns. I call it Storybrooke. And there was a lot of different things that happened within that year. And it was sort of a weird area for me. I kind of felt like I was, psychically, I kind of felt lost and confused, fully confused. I started believing everything that the spirit realm around me started saying, and I started believing things that were were both fantastic and crazy, at the same time. What's interesting about that is a lot of the stuff that I learned from Storybrooke might have been true. Being that there might be things within the afterlife that I don't understand. That there might be dimensions out there that are brimstone. There are certain things that they prepared me for, and some of the immorality behind the scenes is a part of that, I believe. I might do a recording pertaining to what Storybrooke is, what I'm talking about when I say Storybrooke. It was a certain year within my life where I experienced I experienced a lot of information and certain life experiences that are hard to talk about. That are I was told a lot of different things from a lot of different spirits about the things that were happening around me, whether they were happening or not. I don't know, but after a while, I started to walk out of Storybrooke. I started to walk out of this place where it was sort of like a year where spirits were messing with me. And not to say that they aren't messing with me now, but it felt like for a good year there, from midway through 20. And finally in 2016, I think it was it was at the end of 2015. I think it was either at the end of 2015 or at the end of 2016. I can't remember which. I started to develop even more psychic gifts. I started being able to channel. I started being able to feel impressions. It's difficult to describe what impressions are, but imagine if you were able to see and feel at the same time, and that being a separate sense to that being separate sense from sight and touching. I started being able to feel vibes, musical vibes. You ever put on a music video? You ever listen to music? You ever get really into it? You ever really start feeling it? What is it that you're feeling when you're getting really into it? Are those your own vibes? Is that you doing that? Are you invoking those vibes? Are you creating those vibes? The same thing I asked about emotions. I ask about vibes and impressions. You think about impressions. You think about holidays. You think about Thanksgiving. What's the Thanksgiving impression? What's the feeling of it? What's the feeling of Christmas? What's the feeling of Christmas? You kind of get like a green, kind of red kind of impression, right? You kind of get a feeling of that, right? Different vibes. Well, just next time you put on a music video, just subtly pay attention. Jam with the spirits around you, man. They might be throwing you vibes. Those musical vibes you may be feeling might be spirits around you. Might be people who are trying to defend you and help you. Just letting you know that they're there. You never know. Might be people just jamming with you. That thing still exists. Spirits walking by and just jamming. That happens. It's a lot of things like that. And I've continued. There's a slew of other things in which I started to develop psychically to be able to feel empathetically. My empathetic awareness has, well, it's been changing, I think, to a certain degree, as I've used heart chakra radiance. That's as I started to love. I started being able to feel the emotions around me more clearly. I started being able to tell when emotions were being implanted in me. What do you mean when emotions are being implanted within you? Well, remember when I said earlier that in my belief system, I believe that a lot of our emotions are manipulated and influenced. Not just manipulated, and also manipulated, influenced, and implanted. Meaning that the emotions that we feel, the emotions that I feel at times, I feel aren't necessarily my own because I can feel them. Because of the way I can feel them. I'm naturally empathetic. And most people, the way it's set up for them isn't necessarily that. It feels like it's your own emotions. It feels like it's coming from your core, right? Just because it feels like it's coming from your core and it's aligned there, doesn't mean it's necessarily you. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's you. It might be spirits implanting emotion. And I can feel it very clearly in regards to myself, because as over the years, it's changed over the years. I've been able to tell it. I've been able to, communications, confirmed it to a certain degree. I guessed, a lot of it, some of it, but some of, and some of it wasn't. Some of it was experience. Some of it was guesswork. And some of it was correspondence, spiritual correspondence. I've been writing and learning the past couple of years. I've basically been speaking to the spirit realm fully, with, out loud channeling with my, to be truthful, and it's a shame, I barely use my mind for, the gift, in the gift, man. I call, I started calling, my gift, I started calling my mind. So I started calling, it the gift. Like, I have this gift in my mind, and I'm able to speak to people. So I started calling it that for a reason. After a while, but you are correct. And within my mind, I haven't used that communication as often as I should have, as often as I should. I usually use my out loud. Sometimes I use my out loud channeling voice to be able to communicate with spirits. Like, what are they saying right now? What are the spirits saying? Nothing. We're not saying anything right now. See that we're not saying anything right now. That was the spirit realm. That wasn't me speaking. That was me. That was someone channeling through my physical voice, because I can feel it. And this is it. Someone said, "How do you know it's not you?" And I can feel it. There's something there. You ever get there's certain things in everyday life that people can equate to that. You ever talk and you ever talk you ever talk out loud with your physical voice and it's going so smooth? Like, public speakers know what I'm talking about. Those public speakers know what the hell I'm talking about. You know how some days it's smooth as heck? You're just like, and you look in the mirror afterwards and you're like, damn, I'm damn decent, aren't I? That might be the spirit realm around you, though, helping you out. And that's the truth. And you'll have there's some days where you're like, okay, well, that went horribly. I was not on key. I was all over the map. I was stuttering. There was things here and there. That might be the spirit realm, screwing with you too. That might be the spirit realm as well. There's times when you talk out loud where it's a lot smoother, where it's almost velvet. But it's not just velvet. It comes naturally, smoothly. Like the words that you need to be able to speak just happen, right? They just on point, right? Well, yeah, I guess some people could call it a gift of charisma. There is such a thing as that. But there's other things too. It's not just charisma. It's and all that could be a lot of people don't realize in their everyday life that they're actually open channeling some of the times. Some of the responses that people give during a wide range of stuff could be open channels. It feels to a certain extent that it's you, but to a certain extent it might not be. And I'm able to feel, people channeling through to a certain extent, and I'm able to feel it, to a lot of us, a lot, man. I can feel it a lot. I can feel the difference between when I'm talking and when someone else is talking through me. That's it. It's the difference between someone moving my arm and the difference between me moving my arm. Remember that metaphor I said in regards to love? Yeah, the same thing can apply in regards to it. If someone else is moving my arm, then, that's not necessarily me. It may feel like I'm moving my arm because we'll do it. Grab one of your arms with your other arm and move it around. It feels like your arm's moving. It feels like you're moving your arm, but you're not necessarily moving your arm. Whichever arm you're moving it with is. And that's the thing here, is that most people think that the emotions that they're experiencing at times are their own. A lot of the energies that they're experiencing are their own. Heck, this could be said about vibes, impressions. You ever look down a path, a certain pathway, and you kind of get this bad feeling? Where's that bad feeling coming from? Is that coming from you? Are you originating it? If it's coming from you, then why are you, why you just don't feel like... Some people say, like, oh, well, we just didn't feel like going that way. Well, what if it was actually the spirit realm around you letting you know not to go that way? And it just feels like it's you. That's the thing of it. That's the thing, and there's a slew of energies like that, man. Small things throughout everyday life. Urges. You ever got the urge to eat? Where's that urge coming from? Is that a physical body urge? It might be, but is there something else? Is there something else to it? There might be something else to that sort of thing. Yeah, for many different reasons. Anyhow, as I've continued, I started writing down some of the stuff that I've learned about. Some of the psychic information that I've been given, and I think that it deserves a chance to be looked at, to be reviewed. I think it deserves a chance to flourish. A lot of the experiences I've had over the past couple of years have been difficult to describe at times. Communications and events that happened, not just physically, but also in the spiritual, that has been difficult to explain. And now I want to make a career of being a psychic, of not just being a psychic, of teaching people how to love, of both. I want to teach people how to love. I want to let people know about impressions and vibes, and the different psychic phenomenon that I experience daily, and which could help people out. I wish things were better. Anyway, that's just a bit of my story, and I know that it doesn't make it fully doesn't make sense to a certain degree because I haven't explained certain things. But the past couple of years, I've heard a lot of things from the spirit realm, and I feel like the importance of talking about certain issues and certain topics in the physical is so important. Specifically, the discussion in the physical with physicals. A lot of the things that I do, relates to talking to the spirit realm daily, talking to the spirit realm within the confines of my own home. But actually bringing that discussion to the outside world matters. It matters greatly because it just matters. The more people know about some of the things that I know, the better off I think spirits will be. The better off people will be. Anyhow, that's just a bit of my story, man.